Hi everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Taking a look here at Avax, see what's going on. Up 3% on the day, bounced almost perfectly off this $40.50 mark as we discussed on Saturday. Things are looking pretty good here, folks. Unfortunately, my alert never triggered there, but hey, that's how it works for the most part in trading. You're going to miss a lot of opportunities, so don't get bent out of shape if that happens. I literally missed an entry on Avax, Solana, and SUI by just a very small margin. Again, I was asleep when those alerts would have triggered, so it's 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. But good news is we did solidify some profit here from our SUI trade late last week at about 58% in approximately 24 to 48 hours. So that's really nice. But I want to show this to you just because it's important for you to recognize we saw $1.3 billion in volume, unusual buying activity essentially for Bitcoin this morning, roughly 4 or 5 hours ago. And that sent the market, majority of altcoin markets, moving up, but not a lot of them like blasted off or took off. Okay, and a lot of it is because folks are unsure as to whether or not we'll be able to sustain this price action for Bitcoin. I think 100,000 is more likely than not the local bottom. And if that is the case, we may see a slight retest if that happens for some altcoins, but some maybe not. So let's take a look at AVAX and see if this is a potential reality for this coin or not. And just overall what the best practice is going to tell us for these situations here, because you don't want to just FOMO into the long positions, but lately, FOMO has been, working for a lot of people. And while I don't do that myself, and hindsight's 2020, it always is, you're always better off waiting for a long that doesn't happen versus jumping into a trade that could potentially go against you. So there is that. Having said that, let's take a look at the last 7 days here. We can see 45 to 46, mostly just some late shorts here once we hit that $45 range, which is makes sense because 45 is that resistance range we talked about previously. We're getting closer to that golden pocket. There's a lot of reasons why we may see the price pull back a little bit. So just know that I don't fault you for trying to short into that. I would say shorting into a bullish uptrend just makes no sense at all. So there's that too. But again, shorts are going to short. They're inherently more risky. And generally speaking, people who are shorting these kind of situations are probably the more the gambling type that are okay with taking higher risk trades. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I guess there is, honestly, if you ask me. But if you have the right structure in place, right, you can take these kind of high risk trades as long as you got good risk tolerance. Problem is, very few people have that, and they typically get destroyed. And that's what market makers do. They move the price action in certain directions, just kind of faking you out almost every single time. So at this point here, though, 45 to 46, easy summary. We got a little bit of liquidation left there. If we look at our liquidation delta here, we see more longs than shorts in the market. Big surprise. This happens all the time. But if that stays too high for too long, we could see the price action pull back a little bit. But no matter how you look at it, more people are taking longs versus shorts. So don't be another statistic here. If it's the only thing that moves you to post a high risk trade online, social media, showing how awesome you are scalping the top on a trade you shouldn't be taking, then maybe continue doing that. But over time, you're going to develop the understanding that nobody really cares. And literally, if you're just taking high risk trades, you're going to get an eye roll from me every time. It's like, oh God, here we go again. And that's just kind of par for the course. Unfortunately, crypto is all about, boasting and being very, very outward with your potential profit. But half of these folks don't even close their position. They just show you the best case scenario, and it's hilarious to me. Anyways, I mention that because it's best if you don't do that, because that doesn't really do too much for you in the long run. You're eventually just going to be a 50% trader. You're going to get eaten up on fees, and you're not going to be successful whatsoever. You might get the gloating, like the benefit of showing how good you are, but deep down inside, you're not, right? Or at least you're not going to find that success rate consistently. Okay, so I like to reiterate and reaffirm that because we got a lot of newer traders in the channel. Please understand, I don't mean any disrespect if that's what you do. Everyone has different things that move them, right? Me personally, making a difference in people's lives, that moves me, so that's why I do this, okay? Having said that, though, $44 is that local point of control. A lot of folks are interested in that level, basically just implying we got some support there, okay? So the local bottom is $44 based on people just having a lot of interest there. Well, what do you know? It's called open interest for a reason. That's where people are hedged the most here locally. When we take a look here at the bigger picture, we can see daily time frame. We can actually start with a weekly first because we are in a new week. Just kind of give you some perspective here. We do have some resistances above us, obviously, but those are a little bit further away in the $50 plus range. So we'll worry about that later, but the key takeaway here is that we are above, if I'm not mistaken, all moving averages, which we still are. 35 is that rough estimate at the lower range. We can see we're over 50 in the RSI. Pretty much everything here is very favorable. Okay, we got a nice little pivot or a bounce off that 50 range off of the RSI. Most altcoins are looking like this, truthfully, which is a good sign telling me that altcoins are still very much in play and they found their local bottom. So it's a very, very good thing. We can see we're about 6 days of continuation into this trend. Honestly, we look at TDS, it'll probably be a little less. Actually, no, it's exactly that. Basically just telling us we've got maybe about 3 or 4 more days of continuation before the price should pull back. Not to say it always does this, but you'll commonly see 9s on TD sequential when the price decides it wants to reverse itself. So we're approximately halfway through this little push. That's a good sign because we're over 50 on the RSI. We're not close to 70. We're not topped out in any way. MFI is increasing, telling us we have more money flowing into this coin last 14 days than before. While it's not monumental, when you look at the volume here, this isn't super, super high compared to previous. There's a lot of selling pressure in here too, kind of implying that the top was in, right? Or still is in that $50, $52 range. All that being said, we can see the price action having bottomed out here. Likelihood of further downside is pretty low. We got a good support range between 34 and 40 respectively. We've talked about that previously. So no matter how you look at it here, we've broken mostly bullish because we look at this, we're above the 20-day SMA, check number 1. That's the first initial trend line I like to look for. Secondary to that, 50-day SMA, we close above 43. We're probably going to see further upside here from this coin. This is a very, very good positive sign. So the daily and the weekly both look very good. Okay. Now, don't get it twisted. Most daily timeframes are looking pretty solid here. And pretty much all weekly timeframes are looking great for most altcoins, at least the ones I pay attention to. Having said that, though, we got to double check, make sure our smaller timeframes are not overextending and or giving us any false positives. When we take a look here, let's quickly recognize the RSI is pretty much hitting that 70 level. All right. So it would seem sensible for the price to cool off and at the very least go sideways for some time. Now that we've filled some of our local fair value gaps there and essentially rejected tentatively off that 0.5 fib. Now again, if you're not familiar with fib levels, they're not the end all be all. It shouldn't be like the only thing you use. And I talk about this a lot because unfortunately some folks will follow other influencers that solely use one indicator or solely use Elliott Wave, for example. It's okay, those are very beneficial tools, but Elliott Wave and Fibonacci retracement, basically the same thing, give us just kind of average returns. In other words, it's a forecasting tool, so on average the price will typically come back to the halfway point and reject. That's what we're seeing here. That's what 0.5 tells us. From the local high to the local low, that's essentially where we're at. So 44.66 is that easy number to remember, right? Of resistance. Until we close above that, we can presume the price will probably pull back generally to this local high. So my speculation, and I'm just going to set an alert here. I'm putting my alert right there at the local high where the price action rejected out and has broken since. We haven't seen a retest of that level yet. So $43 would be a solid consideration for long, in my opinion here, if it were to happen. Again, just know if you follow my signals, you'll note that I typically like to wait for trades that either A, do not happen, or when they happen, they're usually higher success trades. So in this situation here, FOMOing into the top doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, even though it could continue to break out. I want to wait for a better entry, and that's just how I do things. You don't have to do that. You could literally get in right now and probably have a lot of success. Everything so far looks great, but with us kind of tapering off, hitting that resistance range, sweeping some of that local liquidation, I think there's a lot of reasons why we could just see a short-term pullback to some of these levels here. I'll post a playout chart in our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord here shortly. It looks a little something like this if you're not familiar. And I post my, trade results, of course, but more importantly, just areas of interest for coins that I'm planning to take trades with. So every time I analyze a chart, I just kind of give you my 2 cents on where I think it might go next. All that being said, for right now, we've broken through our resistance range. It's likely to see this previous resistance range turn into a support range. So we'll go ahead and make sure that we recognize that as well. Furthermore, too, if we take a look at the hourly, we're probably going to be in this situation right now where we're above all moving averages and everything's looking great. Okay, so this just kind of reaffirms a simple fact that even though the price may pull back, it probably won't. And then on top of that, you're going to find much more success taking a long versus a short at this exact moment. Now, do I want to take a long at 44.25? You already know my thoughts on that. I think it's a little too late. But that's just based on the premise that I feel like we might see that lower 100,000 K mark retested for Bitcoin. if and when that happens, I do feel we may see a slight pivot here to the $43 mark, and the local high oftentimes is a good chance to get into the new low, because that's usually how it works. You typically see a pivot from those levels. Again, these are just statistical probabilities, folks. There's absolutely no guarantee that's going to happen. This could be a ship that is sailing, and you may miss out completely if you don't get in now, right? But me personally, again, I sleep soundly at night knowing that if I miss an opportunity, I did the right thing because it meets my qualifications for trade. Or, essentially doesn't because I didn't hit it. But the truth is, if you're FOMOing in because some guy online, including myself, is telling you to get in, you probably shouldn't be following that person, or you probably should be readjusting and reevaluating and doing trades for you, not for them, right? Or you should never piggyback off of anybody. Like, just because somebody's successful doesn't mean they're always going to be. Like, oftentimes I'll have newer traders come to my community, and even though I trade at like 85% success rate on average, they're going to jump in, they're going to FOMO in to 100% of their portfolio on one of these trades that goes wrong. Okay, never do that. I've got a lot of recommendations here. Read through our signals guide so you know how I trade my trades. And then, of course, make sure I recommend checking out our trade alerts. I give you some pretty good considerations for trades there. So those are all there. Anyways, it's there for you. Use it if you want. If not, that's cool too. Once more, I'll post a play-out chart here shortly. Make sure you check out or reference our favorite exchange. It is, of course, Bitunix. No KYC or VPN required. They got some nice little benefits there. These are individual rewards. You're not sharing any prize pools here. If you want to, if you have high volume, you get some good rewards. Just trade how you normally do. Don't let that incentivize you, okay? Anyways, use my link to register so you're always eligible for future benefits. That's the whole point there. But that's just, again, for you, because I like to make sure that my community members are taken care of. So check it out. Either way you look at it, I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for being an amazing part of my life. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.